director of this program.
Right.
And she's a really sweet lady when you talk to her, because I call her every once in a while. But she has made mistakes, and now the oven is broken, so they have to use one that's 2 flights up. And the staff person has volunteers from the guests that bring it up. So there's half the job is done. I mean, really, I don't know. It's not clean anymore. It used to be clean. Well, it's true.
So was the graduation in North Haven? I thought it meant they needed this room for graduation from dance.
No, they just needed me because I don't know. My schedule is too fluid. There's always things moving here and there. So then the fixed pieces end up getting crunched. But I thought, sure, she told me that the graduation was tomorrow. And then I went down there yesterday and I noticed there was balloons everywhere. And
Why would they do it
so
far off?
in the middle of the night last night, I'm like, oh no, graduation is tomorrow. So anyway, it's part of the culture of my life. So
Loosey-goosey is the word.
yeah, and I had to go down. I mean, it was a wonderful event, I have to say. A wonderful graduating class, and the parents are so, I don't know, they're nice to each other. And it's a very, I don't want to emphasize race in any way, but I'm just saying it's a racially mixed group. It's economically mixed. It's religiously mixed. And there they are, raising children together.
That's why, my kids that were in D.C., it was just such an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And that's what Shelby said when she went to college. Said, I went to a diverse high school, she went from 5th through 12th grade. Well, she went from 8th through 12th grade. It was 5th through 12th. Her brother went, and there I come to this school, and I said, but I thought there were a lot of international students. She said, yeah, but the international students stay here.
Right, they're separated out.
And it's all women's college to begin with.
Oh my goodness, so
it's
boy,
Really narrow.
that is really vanilla.
Right,
I mean, and you know, it was surprising too, because Paige with Elon, we sought out, and she wanted a diverse experience away from the sort of white bread, like, you know, and so we went down, we ate up all the talk about, you know, they were a global campus and they had all these global initiatives, and well, yeah, that's fine for the kids that are in the global program. The rest of the kids, Paige said, you know, and it was true, you walk down the sidewalk and every kid looks exactly like Paige. Not just white, but blonde hair, blue eyes, and like, and she said, I'm tired of, I know the world is diverse. I want to be part of that.
Right.
So moving to DC, I mean, at University of Maryland, she found what she wanted, and it is a wonderfully integrated global community of people. So,
you know, my granddaughter was rejected there when she went to transfer.
oh, really?
First of all, she lives so close.
Oh,
and
yeah.
second of all, you know, maybe they had enough DC people then. She's going to Goucher. Which
Oh,
is
I know
at
that school.
Towson.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, she visited with my son's friend, kind of mentors kids. She actually worked at the EPA and then retired, but she has helped kids who are transferring, and she visited there, and she visited, it used to be Western Maryland, and now they have a new name. I forget what it is now, but she decided that Goucher was
Nice.
the place for her.
And
so.
she likes it there.
Well, we'll find out.
You don't know yet,
Yeah.
right? Does she have to go for like a 2-week like orientation?
She's going to do, she didn't do orientation at Mount Holyoke
Oh,
because of COVID.
oh,
So
oh.
my son suggested it would be, and they have, at Goucher, I guess they have a lot of transfer students because they have a dorm just of transfer students.
Oh, that's actually good.
Yeah, so, you know, I think, and she's closer to home.
Yeah.
And she's getting her driver's license. We keep our fingers crossed. You know, when they live in a city.
Yeah, don't need it.
To drive, yeah.
grandson probably was 20 when he got his, and she's 20, but, so she will be a lot, so we're looking forward to a good experience. for
Well,
her.
I hope that's true. I really pray for that because it's important.
That's
Good
for
experience now.
sure. Oh, yeah.
All right.
So does Barbara remembers what,
I have Isaiah 30 as my last page. Oh, wait, 31, 32.
So
Sorry about that.
welcome to the online community. We've been chatting and catching up a little bit here. It doesn't matter to you unless you're trying to watch live, but we are delayed by an hour and more. We celebrated the graduation of Little Steps to Learning Academy in North Halden, which is a school we fully sponsor and participate in. And so we have many happy parents, some of them crying, of course, for good reasons, but happy to send them off. They sang a little song called "I'm Ready to Go." That was a tearjerker. You know? Although at the end of it, I said, "So how many of you are ready for these kids to go?" And I realized some of them are not, but there were a couple people who were like, "Yes,
yes, we're ready.
ready. Yeah, we'll take this."
Now, that was one of the worst things about being a teacher was you only had them for a
Yeah.
year. And you really, most of the time, didn't know. And I taught 5th grade, so they went to middle school, so I didn't even.
That was the
see
last you
them
saw
all.
of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even check with the next teacher and say, how is
How
this
they
person
doing?
doing or whatever.
And our experience is just the opposite because we have Danielle who runs the baby center. And so she comes to the graduations because 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that's how long they have been with us in this
Right,
journey.
right.
And that makes for a great community.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
people really know each other.
Right.
And they're very grateful too. So
that's great.
what did we decide? Isaiah what?
36. 36.
36.
For
Wow.
some reason, my phone won't let me get it. Let's see. I stopped bringing my Bible because the phone I can see better, but not if it won't let me get on. Come on.
I'm still connected. So
Yikes.
I gotta get off Wi-Fi. Maybe I can go through.
Okay, I might have to.
So we're getting ready to read Isaiah 36. And sort of immerse ourselves again in the worldview of Isaiah, whether Isaiah is one person or 3 persons or 3 different traditions, which is sort of an understanding of how words came to be part of the Bible is as they were shared in different communities at different times. Isaiah, it looks pretty clear that Isaiah is a collection of writings from mostly a recognized prophet, if you will. I say that carefully because he's not a fortune teller, but an oracle who can speak a word that feels like it comes from God. And he has a lot to say about the nations and about injustice and about abuse and torture and things that happen as nations take over nations. And somewhere around the middle of the big story is this little nation of Israel, little now, but little after conquest, and the hope that they yet might serve in some significant way in the history of the human population. They came into existence, according to their own tradition, to be very significant in the population of human beings in order to dispense and to share the blessings of God on the earth, because God saw the brokenness and thought that the world needed the boost of a blessing.
Sorry.
All right, so we're trying to get you ready as the reader, aren't we?
I guess, yes, now that I have found it. Okay, so it's chapter 36 in Isaiah. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah, King Sennacherib of Assyria came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and captured them. The king of Assyria sent the Rabshakeh with a great army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. he stood by the conduit of the upper pool on the highway to the fuller's field, and there came out to him Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the palace, and Shebna the secretary, and Joah, son of Asaph, the recorder. The Rabshakeh said to them, "Say to Hezekiah, thus says the great king, the king of Assyria, on what do you base this reliance of yours? Do you think that mere words are strategy and power for war? On whom then do you now rely, that you have rebelled against me? See, you are relying on Egypt, that broken reed of a staff, which will pierce the hand of anyone who leans on it. Such is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who rely on him. But if you say to me, we rely on the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and altars Hezekiah has removed, saying to Judah and to Jerusalem, you shall worship before this altar? Come now, make a wager with my master, the king of Assyria. I will give you 2,000 horses, if you are able on your part to set riders on them. How then can you repulse a single captain among the least of my master's servants, when you rely on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? Moreover, it is without the Lord that I have come up against this land to destroy it. The Lord said to me, go up against this land and destroy it. Then Eliakim, Shebna, and Joah said to the Rabshakeh, please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. Do not speak to us in the language of Judah, within the hearing of the people who are on the wall. But the Rabshakeh said, has my master sent me to speak these words to your master and to you, and not to the people sitting on the wall, who are doomed with you to eat their own who eat their own dung and drink their own urine? Wow. Then the Rabshakeh stood and called out in a loud voice in the language of Judah, hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Do not let Hezekiah make you rely on the Lord by saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, make your peace with me and come out to me. Then every one of you will eat from your own vine and your own fig tree and drink water from your own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of grain and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Do not let Hezekiah mislead you by saying, the Lord will deliver us. Has any of the gods of the nations delivered their land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharim? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who among all the gods of these countries have delivered their countries out of my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? But they were silent and answered him not a word, for the king's command was, do not answer him. Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the palace, and Shebna the secretary, and Joah, son of Asaph, the recorder, came to Hezekiah with their clothes torn and told him the words of the Rabshakeh.
So one of the most interesting things that I hear in this is it's interesting that the king of the foreign nation is calling King Hezekiah to account for his religion and for his practice of religion, which was to destroy the religion of the people, even though it was the worship of Yahweh, it was the worship of Jehovah, but the people evidently were rebellious and refused to come to Jerusalem to carry out their religious pilgrimages and their religious quests. So Hezekiah tore them all down. He wreaked havoc on the people's religion. And he was trying to marshal the practice of faith into the control of the king. So listen to how wise this representative of this Assyrian king is to that whole issue. And the appeal that he makes to the people of Judah, I have to say, I never was really aware that it was recorded that the Jewish people, the Hebrew people, were given a chance to avoid the brutality of the Assyrians. Now, whether they would have
They
kept their
believed
promise
that.
or not, yeah, who knows? But what I see here is, look at the corruption that is going on under the name of leadership, where these representatives of King Hezekiah say to the ambassadors of the conquering Assyrian king, don't speak in the language that the people understand. Don't let them know what you're saying. We don't want them to know that you're offering them, if they will just simply stand down and relax. We will take control, but we will not transport you immediately. But we will, in a few years, whatever, you can still live where you live and be okay. You'll just be a vassal state of Assyria. But we will come, as we have done other places, and we will transport you. We'll mix you up, because that's how Assyria and many other conquering nations got control. They had to break down the structure of the nation that you conquered. So, it's amazing to me, it happens a lot where the person who is not part of the Hebrew religion knows about the Hebrew religion. Speaks in a way like Cyrus speaks as if he knows the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on a first-name basis, but he's not Hebrew. And here, this Assyrian king says, where's your God? And true to Isaiah's warnings, the Assyrian king says, who are you relying on? I know who you're relying on. You're not relying on God. You're relying on Egypt. And what an image that is, like, if you lean on Egypt, you're going to be falling on a dry reed, which is going to puncture you. Well, I can't help but think that Isaiah would be saying, see, I told you so. You know, these alliances with other nations, they're not going to save you. But on the other hand, who is?
This mentions for verse 10, appeal to the anger of the national deity reflects Isaiah's sayings about Assyria as the Lord's agent for the punishment of Israel.
Yeah, it's like the Assyrian king knows what's happening on the national level more than Hezekiah does. Because he's saying to Hezekiah, look, did you not listen to Isaiah? We've risen up as the discipline of your God against you. We have your God's blessing for our invasion. Wow. How does he know that? How does he come to that? And by the way, Isaiah has warned you not to lean on Egypt because they won't help you. What a depressing moment in national history.
They're caught between two powers that are in conflict with each other. So what they're trying to do is, which way are you going? Towards Egypt or towards Assyria? And eventually, the Assyrians conquered Egypt. And
they do, for a brief period of time.
673 to 663. Yeah,
right, for a brief period of time.
So this is before that, so they don't know. Hezekiah has got to come to terms with one of these powers. So Assyria's making a promise, or at least an attempt to say, if you come and with us and not rely on Egypt, we'll treat you fairly, we'll do this, we'll do that. I don't know what kind of assurances they've gotten from Egypt if they go with them, but it's, in the end, I think they got the worst of everything, because they didn't make an alliance with Assyria. They ended up being, although it does say here too, that they will bring you to a land that is like yours.
Yeah.
So they're not even saying, we'll let you stay.
No, they're not. But there's a little interlude. He says, you know, at first you can stay and eat your own, drink from your own vines, and you'll be all right for a little bit. But then he's fully honest with them.
Yeah,
He says, you know, look, but you know how we are.
yeah,
We're going to transport you. We're going to move you to a land like your land so that we can continue to be in control. I mean, wow, such honesty. Like,
yeah,
I mean, this guy, when you think about, you know, the words of the psalmist and others, like, oh, there's a liar everywhere around every corner. Well, guess what? This guy's not lying.
right,
He's telling them the truth straight up. And he's also telling them, if you resist us, we are going to annihilate you.
right. So what's with Hezekiah? I guess we're gonna find out. I don't remember what he does, but he certainly doesn't cooperate.
No,
with
he
the
does not.
Assyrians. And,
But I think when you said Hezekiah is caught between two nations, I think there's a third alternative. And the third alternative is what Isaiah seems to be promoting, which is tell them both to go pound sand. Like we should demonstrate our faith in God and live out our faith in God, and like sort of just have it be whatever, you know, like whatever. But we're going with God. You know, we're going to be on God's side. I know. And yet here's Isaiah saying, look, God has it in for you right now. You have been far less than faithful, and maybe it's Hezekiah's fault. I don't know. But there's internal struggle, and there's still the civil war, which is going on between the northern and the southern.
they mention the Sumerians, like they're a different country,
Right.
which,
And at that time they may be, because they were in the very north and to the west. And so Assyria is coming down from the north. And so they've shown their strength. They leapfrogged right over the Sumerians.
yeah,
And then here they are at the gate now of the controllers of Jerusalem, of Judah. And they're saying, look, what do you want to have happen here? You've seen our strength. And then it's really like dancing on the head of the lion, because he goes, so what about the 5 other countries we've conquered? Have you seen their gods help them? Have you seen any sign of strength in other gods?
Rely on your gods? Because
Yeah.
that doesn't work out
Yeah.
very well for anybody else.
Yeah, how'd that work out for them? No, it's almost snarky. But
I'd like to know what kind of a position is the Rab Sheikh.
Mentions here.
yeah, the Rabshakeh, does it have it in?
Is a chief steward.
Right, the cupbearer
Oh,
of the Assyrian king.
so person in high in authority.
Yeah, the representative that comes directly from the
from
king. Yeah.
So they're dealing with somebody who knows, you know. So don't speak in our language.
Yeah.
Don't let those people.
Yeah, don't let the people that are our people hear what you're saying directly. And I think, wow, that is the trick of politics.
Treachery.
That's politics in raw form.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, let's get away and talk and work out deals. And what did he think, what was the deal going to be?
It
Like,
wasn't going to be good.
well, I think he was afraid, Hezekiah's group was afraid, that if they heard this powerful presentation of the Assyrians, that the Hebrew people would rebel, and they would say, let's surrender.
Right. Huh.
And they didn't want to surrender.
It actually.
Would have been better for them if they
I think
did.
it would have. I mean, because, you know, you're gonna go. You're either gonna go peacefully, or
That's right.
or we're gonna give you a lot of grief. Which would you choose? And do you have enough people to put in those chariots that you're gonna get from Egypt? Because
Horses.
yeah, Egypt may send you the, you know, the armaments, but you gotta have folks to put in the, the chariots.
Yeah,
So what does that say about the people of Judah if they had known?
And it says here that we were talking before, at this point when this overture is being presented, the Egyptians have already been turned back. The Assyrians have already confronted the Egyptians and have moved them back, and everybody knows that, including Hezekiah. So their chariots and their horses are not going to make it for whatever battle is about to ensue. And, I mean, Hezekiah is faced with, what does faith in God mean? Does faith in God mean that you subject yourself to some action, which you can say is faith in God, but ultimately is going to bring about destruction? So Isaiah seems to encourage, give in to the collapse and just see it as a discipline of God in your life. But this idea that I have faith in God, I'm going to jump off the building, and I have faith in God that when I land, my legs are not going to be shattered.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not faith. And Jesus confronted that kind of faith too when, the whole confrontation with the devil, you should not test the Lord your God. So, but what is the path for these people? What are they supposed to do? They have this theological interpretation that the invasion of nations on their nation is now a punishment from God. And
Yeah. People still do that,
Damned
though,
if you
today.
do,
I mean, it
and damned
sounds,
if you don't.
exactly. And, it seems like, oh, well, that is ridiculous. God would do, God's not punishing by, annihilating you. That's not going to happen. But a lot of people believe that today, too. I mean, we have the story of Noah. So, I mean, if that's
Well, when the
part of it.
tsunamis came and people said God brought them to punish people,
Right.
people still will, if there's a disaster, say God brought it, God did it.
well, Sodom and Gomorrah. The whole story of Sodom and Gomorrah was the people who lived in those two valleys,
For evil.
they were evil people. And so nobody was surprised when the heavens broke open and fire rained down on them. And But then, again, Christian theology, Jesus comes along and smells the odor of that way of thinking. And somebody says to him, why is this man blind? Is it his mother or his father or who is it? And Jesus says, neither. But there is an opportunity right now for me to demonstrate that God is engaged in the world in a positive way, and he touches the man's eyes and he's healed. And then there's also the sins of the fathers are meted out against the generations. So this idea that if there's suffering in the world today, it's because of the sins of the generations prior. Now, I'm going to say there is a factor of that built into life. It's like the laws of the universe, right? If you grow up in a time where someone built a factory on the edge of the river and they polluted the river, and then they all die because they've grown old, guess who has to clean the mess up or whose children get poisoned? It's the children, the grandchildren of those who built it. And isn't that part of the way life is?
Those are man-made disasters. So we can say, God had no hand in that.
Right. But does God have a hand in the man-made disaster called war?
These people
Side
believe
is
it.
God on?
I don't, you know what? You either believe, it's kind of hard to be stuck in the middle. I believe when good things happen, it's from God. And I believe when bad natural, then it
It's
can't be from God.
humans.
Yeah, so there's that conflict. And in all the traditions, all these scriptures, and even in the Quran, there are whole cities that were turned upside down and destroyed because the people were doing evil in the sight of the Lord. Well, that's all the way through. Jesus does speak out against it, but
He does. But he
he
also
asks God, please take this cup from me if I don't know.
and he also hangs on the cross and says, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing.
Yes. So he's acknowledging that God has power over what the actions of those individuals are that are, so I'm in this conflict thing, you know, again, and who can explain? I just feel that Isaiah leans too heavily on everything that is bad is because of this action or that action, or that generation 50 generations ago. And there were so many kings who came, and then people spoke out against them, and they were told that none of your family will survive, and none of their offspring for generations unto
Right.
the end of the world. I mean,
Yeah.
yikes.
I think in these conversations, I learned something about myself. I'll take it back as soon as I say it, okay? I don't have that much problem with God punishing people who are punishers, people who are brutal, people who are slavers, people who deprive people of food and opportunity for life. The part I get really upset about is when people teach that God will deliver that kind of raging punishment because you didn't say the right prayer, or because you didn't worship in the right temple, or because you've practiced, quote, worship in a way that, you know, God is unhappy with. Now, to me, when people start getting punished for that kind of thing, which is their religious rituals or their behaviors, I go, okay, I'm out. I'm out. Because I just I cannot believe that God is so invested in our own rituals and our own understandings. And when you read the earlier portion, like of Moses and then into Joshua, a lot of times when Joshua gets up in front of the group and yells at them, he yells at them for religious practices. He's mad about the way they pray or when they pray or that they don't pray. But it just seems to me that as we get further into the story, what's revealed is that the passion of God or the anger of God gets inflamed when the little people are picked on. You know, picked on, I mean really picked on. You know, I've told this story about, it's a black mark in the story of, I guess, I don't know, European Christianity, but there was a group of Presbyterians that were sort of caught up in the Reformation of John Knox and others, but they had a prayer as a group. It was sort of a mini denomination, and they had a prayer that they had written, and it was meaningful to them. And they prayed it in their liturgy. Well, the higher-ups in the Presbyterian Church learned about this prayer. They looked at it, and they declared that it was heresy and that it was to be stopped. And the people said, no. And they kept praying it. And so armies came. The people were hunted down in the streets. They were drowned. They were hung, burned in effigy. And after they had eliminated, like genocide, almost everybody that was a part of it, except for a group, I don't know, there were maybe 30 or 40 families that were still living. And they rounded them all up, and they locked them in the Scottish castle. And there they were in the dungeon of the castle, dying. And some merchant marine guy needed a crew for his ship. And so he heard about these people that were in the dungeon, and he offered them their freedom if they would come out of the dungeon and they would work on his ship. So they did. Half of them died on the journey over. The other half made it into Sandy Hook. They made it on shore, and they arrived in Bound Brook, and they started the Bound Brook Presbyterian Church.
Which heresy was this? Do you know that?
Well, they were called, why can't I remember
There's
what?
so many of these.
Oh yeah, and these little,
groups.
these little groups that, deviated from the norm of what others,
Yeah.
and they're condemned as heretics, and in the name of God, they are murdered.
Well, that happens all the time.
And so
Throughout history. Not
Yeah.
in ancient times alone, but, you know, it's again, it's political. It's got nothing to do with theology, I would posit.
No, yeah,
because, you know,
yeah.
it's who's in power.
Exactly.
And they want to hang on to power. That's political. That's not theological at all.
So they, when they got established, the Native Americans, fortunately, in that central New Jersey area, were very kind to this people. And they established them by the native tribes, or original tribes, moved up off the lowland and gave the land to these people, and they taught them how to farm in that land. Unfortunately, it was the lowland, and it got flooded all the time.
Yeah, well, they were like,
But-
we want to.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So,
We see a
yeah,
sucker.
yeah. So, but you know what? They did. So then they built a church. This community built a church, and they put a tower in the front of it. And on the tower inscription on the bottom, they said this tower was to be a monument to the fact that God is good, but that people aren't always.
Okay. Now that is so enlightened, isn't it?
Isn't that beautiful?
It is. And if they only remembered it through the ages.
Well, and then inside the church, they had a I don't know, museum-like cabinet. And in that, there was a stone. There's a stone in there. And that writing says this stone was taken from the wall of the castle we were imprisoned in.
Oh.
And it's to be there as a reminder of how brutal Christians can be to each other. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be one faith
no, we
against
have,
another. It could be Christian against Christian. It's just not your brand of Christianity.
in the Christian
So,
Reformed Church
crazy.
last weekend, in their general assembly, they don't have really big ones, but in their largest assembly for denominational purity, passed an ordinance. They will not, under any circumstances, ordain gay and lesbian people. And if there are those that have made it under the wire, their ordination is revoked.
Okay.
And-
That's tough. Yeah.
Every minister ordained in the Christian Reformed Church, and that includes all these churches around here, has to sign a pledge
Yeah, you had said that.
that they are not going to ever support gay and lesbian people.
Okay.
I just think,
Well, it's time for a new, now it's another denomination. We're going to break away from
Right,
that.
exactly.
yeah, that's right.
how it happens.
And that's what's happening here. There are, in fact, Gail Beverly, right? That's the right order of
Yes.
those names.
Yes, I know. I
She's-
always
Two first
wonder.
names.
She's here because she saw it coming in her
really?
denomination. Yeah, and she
Wow.
just said, I can't.
Because the Reformed Church is
Yeah.
very close to Presbyterian.
Very close.
Yeah.
There's several.
It's a
There's,
little differences,
yeah,
but
but
it's
there's
very
several
close.
Reform, but I think I'm saying it right. It's the CRC, Christian Reformed
Is
Church.
that what Pons is?
No, Pons is I don't know, United Reformed,
Ah, okay.
which is
Oh,
a more,
okay.
it's a
More
more
liberal.
progressive.
The
Yeah.
Christian
Right.
is more the Dutch.
That's right.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, yeah.
But even
Then
in,
there's the
Blue
Netherlands
laws and the-
Reform, which is even
More
more
strict?
strict. Yeah.
but
Oh, really?
yeah,
Come on.
so
folks.
we're not moving
Get
moving in a direction of liberty and love.
No.
We're moving in a direction of restriction and I think
exclusivity.
fear.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't help the political stuff that's going on in this country is doing a lot of damage to all of these institutions, because, you know,
What do we have to fear? What do we have to fear? I don't understand.
human beings with
Just fearing losing
with
what we
wigs
have?
and makeup.
You know, I don't know.
I think the most ridiculous thing are the drag
Yeah, the
queen,
fear about the drag
in the
queens.
libraries
Right.
reading to little kids. The kids are like, if you see any
Yeah.
of the clips, the kids are fascinated.
Yeah.
It's like, look, there's people in costumes, and the adults are making such a big deal out of this.
Well, they're blurring the lines between the races. And everybody knows in the beginning God created Adam and then created a woman to help him.
Well, sure. the helper
Yeah.
person.
Yeah,
The person who's not quite a person.
yeah.
Yeah. And, it's all crazy. People really do feel, though, connected to that. I don't know if anybody's seen it. I guess it's on Amazon, Happy Shiny People. It's about
Oh, no, I
the
haven't.
sect that the Duggar family was in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I haven't seen it, but I read an editorial in the Times about it, which was like so critical of this leader who's one of these charismatic guys and who has this huge following. It's one of these mega church kinds of things, and there are a lot of other churches that have glommed onto their kinds of ideas about family and the family hierarchy, and that, women should be subject to the husband, and what happens, you get families like that Duggar family that was in that reality show, 15 and counting.
Yeah.
I think eventually
Yeah.
they had like 19 kids, and I'm thinking, how obedient do you have to be to have 19 kids? Well, come on. But, it turned out that the oldest son had molested 4 of his sisters, and that happens, but they were saying it's a lot of it had to do with the kind of hierarchy that was instilled in some of these families, and the fact that they don't talk about these things.
Right.
These things are happening, but they don't talk about them. And I actually was tempted to maybe look it up on Amazon to see if I could, see it, but I thought, how depressed do I want to be? But they're saying it's a big movement in this country to go that conservative, or whatever you call it, fundamentalist, or I don't even know what you would call that, but
Cult.
cult. Yeah, it's a cult.
But it is popular. That way of solving life's problems is attractive to human beings. It's rough to be out here in the world on your own, to have ideas that you're only half sure of, and the mysteries of life come and they go at you, and then someone offers order. They
Well,
offer
that's what's
order and
happening-
control.
That's what's happening in this Isaiah passage. Somebody's offering you something, you're kind of wary about it. You want things to be black and white. We'll stick with God, even though maybe God's saying, maybe this time you should do.
Right. Maybe accept Assyria's movement.
And we'll work it out after
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But who knows? But that's what this Duggar family, I guess, I can't think of the name of the guy who's the leader of the cult, but they discourage any conversations about things like this in the family. So of course you're going to have problems. It's like, ignore it, just follow the rules,
Right,
and
just-
everything will be well. And
Yeah, just keep putting one foot in front of the other and trust. Again, here's
trust in God.
trust in God, but indirectly,
Like
first
God.
trust in me. It's trust in
So I
us.
am God's
Trust in
representative.
us, because we're the one breaking it all down for you and helping you to see what does it mean for you to really trust God. And that's why I'm not, it's about me. I'm not a go-alonger. I'm not. I by my very nature, I'm not like, okay,
Always been a rebel.
yeah, I have been. So I'm like, you know what? I'll do it on my
Question
own.
meaning,
Thank you very
question
much.
everything.
That's right.
I'm like, kind of the same way, I guess. It's like, okay, I buy whatever you're telling me, up to a point, and then there always has to be some pushback about something, because there's nothing that is that cut and dried and clear to me in this world.
Right.
There's so much we don't know. You just do your best, but when people are deliberately trying to mislead you, like in this passage too, Hezekiah's, I wouldn't trust him.
No, why would you trust him? Look what he did. He's like, don't speak in their language because I don't want them to know what deal you're offering.
He's supposed to be looking out for
Yeah.
the people's interest, that, the people up on the wall, I don't know what the wall is, but
It's a fascinating concept, though, that underlying this, if what if an idea had emerged that, yes, God was going to take away Israel's sovereignty. God was going to take away their independence in the world. But if they would cooperate with what God is doing with the Assyrians, that the loss of life would be minimal, that their suffering would not be that bad, that if Hezekiah had just heard what this person was saying and had said, okay, let's walk boldly to our, we, as a society, our world is crushed. And it was. They were ripped up by civil war. They couldn't resist anybody. So why not? Why not just go, okay? But then the Assyrian representative makes it a case that if they do that, it'll be a sign that their God is weak. Even though he's the one that proposes and says, look, your prophet has told you we're coming as an arm of God. So why don't you just give in? Stop fighting. Just take your punishment, and God will come and rescue you.
You're in an impossible situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I would have done, but I think, because for Hezekiah to give in is also not only saying our God is weak, but I'm
weak. Yeah, I think in some ways it's more even I'm weak because he's been clueless about what to do. But at the same time, he's been out there among the people, destroying their little in-home churches and sanctuaries, wrecking their practice of their faith, and saying, you have to come to Jerusalem, and you have to be under my control. I want to say to Hezekiah, well, maybe you ought to take a look at that approach.
Maybe that's why he doesn't want his people to know what he's talking
That's exactly right.
Just
Don't,
keep them in the
yeah,
dark.
don't hear. So shall we read 37? Wow, it's long though.
Uh-oh.
Oh my goodness.
Should we wait on that?
Yeah, I think maybe we should. I think we should, because it's a big response.
Okay.
When King Hezekiah heard it, he tore his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went into the house. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. That's good.
Okay,
Keep 'em in
here
there.
it comes.
All right, so I think we'll stop there. I know we didn't get too much going, but
And we did solve some of the problems of the world again.
well, we usually do. If people would just listen,
If they would just listen.
just listen. Just
the world
listen to
would be
us.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, God speaks
We
through us.
know
Yeah,
God is telling us. the
right.
Oh, well.
Just listen to me.
What's the biggest?
I will control you.
What's the biggest proof of it? Well, the biggest proof of it is there's only 3 of us here, and that's what God does. God works powerful, truthful things through tiny little groups, right?
And we didn't get zapped by a big bolt of lightning
Not
yet.
Still,
Not yet.
Yet. I
I,
did say
Not
yet.
yet.
I love the Margaret Mead thing. Don't think that a small group of people can't make a difference. It's the only thing.
That's the only
That
thing
ever
that ever
does.
does. I used to have that on a, I don't know where that plaque is. I used to have that on a plaque
Yeah.
of my office door
There's
at
a,
my previous
there's a
church.
group, I can't remember it, that has all that poster kind of stuff.
Oh,
I can't remember what the name of it was now, but my grandson, when he did his coming of age for Unitarian, you not confirmed you, his coming of age.
Oh,
He had to
that's
write a
great.
statement,
Yeah,
and he had that, going, yes,
yeah.
he's my grandson. He's listened
Yeah.
to me.
Oh, well. So let's wait until next week to see what, oh, no, you're not gonna
Next
be
week
here.
I won't be here.
You'll be fishing. I'm gonna read ahead. I'm gonna
Uh-oh.
cheat and read ahead.
Well, it's a good
She
time to
can't
do
wait.
that because it's become more narrative now.
Yeah,
It's become more story.
there's more of a story.
Yeah, rather than these, oracles from the hill into
Isaiah,
times and places that we don't really know.
yeah.
The context is not known that much for us, so it's very hard.
Is it more chronological
It is.
also?
It does
You know,
becomes more
whereas before
chronological.
it was all over
Yeah.
the place.
Yep,
Mm.
so, yeah, so let's see what happens. So 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks to those of you who are watching. I'll be on vacation next week. Glad to join back in again when we get back together. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna depend on any Egyptians. I
that's
know a
right.
lot of them
Any
too.
No Egyptians. We're not gonna depend on any
What,
Egyptians.
was there a rock song about the Egyptians?
Walk like